Clarence Brandley also has personal experience with Texas's death penalty. He spent 9 years on death row for a crime he did not commit before his exoneration in 1990. I'd like to introduce Clarence Brandley.
I would like to start by saying I pray and hope that Texas will take a look at all these men standing here today and see that there are mistakes being made in capital cases. And I'm a living example of that because I spent 9 years, 5 months, and 23 days on Texas death row. And I'm just hoping and praying also that Governor Rick Perry will ask the legislators when they come back in session this year to form an innocence committee. And if not even do that, put a moratorium, stop the execution until we have a complete an investigation of all cases on Texas death row. Because I stand here today and say that there have been some innocent people who have been executed right here in Texas. But the politician was not going to say that, and the governor is not going to admit that. So it takes a real man, just like the governor of Chicago, Governor Ryan, to stand up and say, nope, we're not going to execute anyone else until we have full investigation of all these death row inmates' cases. And I'm praying that the legislature here today, when they get back in session, in January, that he will start to try to form an innocence committee. And I pray and hope that all of these men who are standing here today, who had the support and love of their families, and their families believe in them, that they will continue to be strong and continue to speak out and speak to others about it, because it is people who make the difference. And people can change things. And I pray and hope that I will live to see this state of Texas just stop the execution. It's like, what around that? Why can't that be an innocence committee form? Why can't there be a moratorium? Why the rush on killing people? Premeditated murder. And 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I'm praying and hope that the government will step forward and the legislature, when they come back in January, will form an innocence committee and put a moratorium on capital punishment in the state of Texas.
State Representative Elliot Naishtat has repeatedly called for a moratorium on executions in Texas. And he has stated that Texas's application of the death penalty is riddled with systemic problems. Representative Elliot Naishtat.
Thank you all for being here, especially all of you. I'm here to welcome these men and women who are here to the Texas Capitol, to your Capitol. Witness to Innocence is an organization composed of exonerees, people wrongly convicted of the crimes that sent them to death row. It's a national problem, but the problem has a distinct Texas face. 9 men sentenced to death in Texas have been exonerated. One of those, Clarence Brandley, just spoke to you. Could we just give Clarence and all of these folks another? These individuals, through their individual stories, bear witness to flaws in our criminal justice system. And while each has a unique account, we do see a number of root causes, systemic problems that we can solve, that the legislature can solve in this state. This month, Texas Monthly has a powerful story of the 37 DNA exonerations in Texas, including both capital and non-capital cases. In this article, journalist Michael Hall, who we're hoping is joining us today, may even be here, looks at each of these 37 individuals It's in this month's, the November edition of Texas Monthly, 37 Innocent Men by Michael Hall. I commend it to you. I've sponsored legislation to give the governor of Texas the authority, clear authority, to impose a moratorium on executions in Texas. That would be a temporary ban, temporary suspension of the death penalty imposed of legislators and judges and prosecutors, the public unite who has to serve on it, while the blue ribbon panel would examine our criminal justice system, and especially where the death penalty is administered in this state. This is a power that the governor of Texas does not have at this time. It can be corrected. So if the governor of Texas wanted to declare a moratorium, temporary suspension of the death penalty, so that he could appoint, the legislature could appoint a panel, a blue ribbon task force, to study the way the death penalty is administered, just like Governor Ryan of Illinois, just like Governor Brendan in Maryland did. The governor of Texas could not do that, even if he wanted to, because he doesn't have that authority. That has to be fixed. The legislation would not mandate that the governor declare a moratorium. It would simply give him the authority, or her, so that he or she could do that. When the legislature convenes in January, I will renew my call for this improvement in our criminal justice system. Texas has the most active execution chamber in America. As you've heard, we've executed 419 men and women in Huntsville since 1982. That's more than 37%, nearly 40% of all the executions in America. As Michael Hall notes in the Texas Monthly article, Texas also leads the nation in the number of DNA exonerations. We should heed the words of Sam Millsap. I quoted him in an op-ed I wrote several years ago in support of a death penalty moratorium. Mr. Millsap said, "Our system in Texas is broken. Until it's fixed and we're satisfied that only the guilty can be put to death, there should be no more executions in Texas." Perhaps more importantly, we should heed the words of these men and women and examine and improve our criminal justice system. And in my office, I will be working very closely with Senator Robin Ellis and Supreme Court Chief Justice Wallace Jefferson to see that we get a Texas Innocence Commission created. Thank you all for being here.